The days grew longer, and the ruins of the city seemed to stretch endlessly before Lyra and Ethan. The world outside their small shelter was harsh, but it was also alive with possibility. Lyra had begun to regain strength, her body healing from weeks of neglect, her mind opening to hope and trust she had thought lost forever. Ethan had never treated her as fragile or helpless. He expected her to learn, to try, and sometimes to fail, but he never scolded. He celebrated every small victory with her, from catching her first fish to navigating through dangerous alleys without fear. Each success gave her confidence, and with confidence came courage. She started to see herself as someone who could matter, someone whose life had purpose. One afternoon, as they explored the outskirts of the city, Ethan noticed movement in the shadows. He froze, signaling for Lyra to do the same. Two raiders emerged, their faces twisted with hunger and cruelty. They had spotted Lyra before her guard could rise and had followed, thinking her alone would be easy prey. Ethan stepped forward immediately, placing himself between Lyra and the threat. "Stay behind me," he instructed, his eyes calm but sharp, taking in every detail. The raiders sneered, brandishing crude weapons. "Looks like the runt's got a protector. Let's see how tough he really is," one of them said. Ethan did not reply. He moved with the certainty of someone who had seen the world at its worst and refused to let it take him or those he cared about. Lyra's heart pounded, not from fear but from a rising sense of awe. She realized that this man, this human, was willing to put everything on the line for someone he barely knew. For her. The first raider lunged forward, swinging his weapon, but Ethan sidestepped with precision, grabbing the man's arm and twisting it until he dropped his weapon with a painful grunt. The second raider charged, but Ethan ducked and delivered a controlled strike that sent him sprawling to the ground. Lyra's hands shook as she watched, but Ethan's voice cut through the tension. "Are you okay?" he asked her calmly, as if nothing had happened, as if her safety was all that mattered. She nodded, unable to speak, overwhelmed by the realization that she was not alone, that someone saw her as precious enough to fight for her life. That night they returned to the shelter. Lyra sat near the fire, her thoughts racing. She had survived the war, the city's collapse, and weeks of abandonment, but nothing had compared to the feeling of being protected, valued, and seen. She understood something essential now. Being cared for was not weakness. It was a recognition of worth, and for the first time she felt it in her bones. Ethan watched her quietly. "You're stronger than you think," he said. "Not because of what you can fight, but because you've endured everything the world threw at you and are still standing." She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "I've never had anyone say that to me, ever." "You deserve to hear it," he said simply, and that simple truth sank into her heart. Weeks turned into months, and Lyra began to contribute in ways she had never imagined. She learned to navigate the ruins with confidence, to find food and water, to move silently, and even to help others who had been left behind. She discovered that she had skills and intelligence that had been ignored when she was considered worthless. And with Ethan's guidance, she found a new purpose: to survive not just for herself, but to help others survive as well. One morning, as the sun rose over the shattered city, Ethan led her to a small clearing beyond the ruins. There, they discovered a group of survivors, men, women, and children, all wary, all scarred by loss. They had been living hidden, struggling to survive against the elements and scavengers. Ethan approached them, speaking gently. "We mean no harm. I only want to help." The survivors eyed him and Lyra cautiously. Some were suspicious, expecting the worst. But Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "We've been through hard times, but there's safety here. You don't have to be alone anymore." Her words carried weight. She had been nothing, thrown away like a shadow, yet now she spoke with authority and compassion. Her presence alone gave the survivors a glimmer of hope, and slowly they began to lower their defenses. Days passed, and Lyra helped organize the survivors. She taught them what she had learned from Ethan: how to find food, secure safe shelter, and protect themselves from threats. They began to rebuild a small community in the ruins, a fragile but growing network of care and trust. And through it all, Ethan watched her, proud of the person she was becoming. But the outside world remained dangerous. One evening, a loud commotion echoed from the edge of the settlement. Raiders had returned, larger in number this time, their eyes greedy and cruel. The survivors panicked, fear spreading quickly through the small group. Ethan stood firm, signaling for everyone to stay calm. Lyra felt her heart race, but instead of panic, she felt resolve. She had learned from Ethan. She had been valued, nurtured, and strengthened. And now, she could act. Together, Ethan and Lyra led the survivors in a strategic defense. They used their knowledge of the ruins, setting traps and creating barriers. Lyra directed people with clarity and courage, her voice cutting through fear. For the first time, she realized that being treated as precious had not only saved her, it had given her the ability to save others. The battle was tense and exhausting. But through courage, intelligence, and unbreakable spirit, they managed to repel the raiders. As the last of the attackers fled into the shadows, the survivors cheered, and Lyra felt a rush of pride unlike anything she had known. She had been nothing once, discarded and abandoned. Now she had a place, a purpose, and people who depended on her. That night, as the survivors celebrated their safety, Lyra sat beside Ethan near the fire. She looked at him with gratitude that words could barely capture. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You made me see that I could matter, that I could be more." Ethan smiled, placing a hand over hers. "You always could. You just needed someone to remind you. The world doesn't always see what's precious right away. But you've proven that it can." Tears filled her eyes, not from fear or pain, but from the overwhelming feeling of belonging, of being valued. She realized that her life, once considered disposable, now mattered profoundly. Not just to Ethan, but to the community they were building together. In the following months, the settlement grew stronger. More survivors joined, drawn by the hope and safety that Lyra and Ethan embodied. Lyra became a leader, respected and admired not because of strength or fear, but because of kindness, courage, and intelligence. And through every challenge, Ethan remained by her side, not as a protector in the traditional sense, but as a partner who saw her worth and treated her accordingly. One quiet evening, as they watched the sun set over the ruins, Lyra spoke, her voice full of wonder. "I never imagined I would have a life like this. A life where I matter, where someone truly sees me." Ethan turned to her, his gaze steady and full of warmth. "You're not imagining it. This is real. You're real, and nothing will ever make you less than what you are. Precious, valued, and strong." For the first time in her life, Lyra believed it. She had been thrown away like nothing, abandoned and ignored, but she had found someone who treated her as someone precious, someone who saw her worth when the world had turned its back. And in that recognition, she had discovered her own strength, her own purpose, and a future filled with hope. The city around them remained broken, but within the walls of their settlement, a new world was being built, a world where lives were cherished, courage was celebrated, and hope was nurtured. And in that world, Lyra was no longer discarded. She was someone who mattered, someone who had the power to change the lives of those around her, and someone who had finally found a place to belong. The rain returned one night, soft and steady, washing over the ruins. Lyra stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the water sparkle under the faint light of distant stars. She thought of all she had endured, all she had survived, and all she had learned, and she knew with certainty that no matter what the world threw at her next, she would face it with courage, with hope, and with the knowledge that she was precious, truly and undeniably. And beside her, Ethan stood silent but steadfast, a living reminder that even in a world that discarded so many, some humans would always see the value in others, always fight for the lives that mattered, and always make the broken feel whole again. Lyra smiled, feeling the warmth of belonging spread through her heart. For the first time in her life, she was home, not in a building, not in a city, but in the presence of someone who truly valued her. And that was worth more than anything the world had ever taken away. The ship's corridors hummed with quiet energy, the soft glow of control panels reflecting off the polished walls. Alex had just finished calibrating the starship's navigation system when he heard the faintest hiss of the door unlocking. It wasn't unusual for crew members to wander in for maintenance checks, but the timing was odd. He turned, expecting one of his human crewmates, and froze. She was standing there, tall and imposing, yet there was something delicate about her presence. Her armor, unlike anything Alex had ever seen, gleamed faintly under the soft lights. The patterns were alien, intricate, almost organic, as if the suit had grown with her rather than been made. She didn't speak at first. Instead, she stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had survived battles Alex couldn't imagine. Then, without warning, she unfastened her armor piece by piece. Not to shock or intimidate, but as a gesture of trust. The clinking of alien metal against the floor echoed in the quiet room. She smiled, and in that moment Alex realized she wasn't a threat. She needed help, and she had chosen him. Alex swallowed, trying to find the right words. I'm Alex, he said finally. His voice sounded small against the enormity of the moment. Her eyes, a bright shade of amber that seemed almost to glow, studied him for a heartbeat. Then she nodded. I am Kayla, she said, her voice calm but carrying authority. I need your help. Alex's mind raced. The starship they were aboard was meant for deep space exploration, not intergalactic warfare. Yet here was Kayla, an alien warrior standing before him with absolute trust. The possibility of danger was high, but he sensed honesty in her tone. There was no deceit in those eyes. Kayla explained that she had been part of a resistance on her homeworld, fighting against a tyrannical ruler who sought to enslave her people. Her mission had failed, leaving her stranded in a distant sector of space. She had tracked this ship through emergency signals and found Alex, a human whose reputation for ingenuity and bravery had reached even her corner of the galaxy. Alex listened, fascinated. His life had always been about solving problems, about exploring the stars, but never had he imagined being chosen by an alien warrior to assist in a struggle that spanned galaxies. He asked the obvious question, why me? Kayla's smile widened, softening her usually fierce expression. Humans are different. You adapt, you improvise. You survive when others would fail. I have seen your actions from afar. You are remarkable. The compliment made Alex uneasy, but it also sparked a surge of determination. He had always felt ordinary, another human among billions. Now standing before Kayla, he felt something else. Purpose. The next hours were a blur of strategy and planning. Kayla showed him her weapons, advanced alien technology that he could barely comprehend. She explained their capabilities and weaknesses. Together, they began devising a plan to return to her world, to free her people from oppression. Alex felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Failure wasn't an option. Not for her, not for those who depended on her. As the night stretched on, Alex discovered that Kayla's armor wasn't just protective. It was part of a larger system, one that enhanced physical strength and reflexes but required synchronization with her mind. Removing it left her vulnerable in unfamiliar territory, but she trusted him to provide guidance. They practiced movement drills, combining human ingenuity with alien precision, creating a rhythm neither had known before. During a brief pause, Alex noticed a flicker of fatigue in Kayla's eyes. You've been traveling far, he observed. It must be exhausting. She shook her head, smiling faintly. Exhaustion is temporary. Fear is unnecessary. I only wish to survive to succeed, and you make it possible. Her words carried a weight that Alex could hardly bear. He realized that trust was more powerful than weapons, more formidable than armies. Kayla had placed her faith in him, and in doing so she had changed the course of both their lives. Suddenly, an alarm blared from the ship's central console. Alex rushed over, heart pounding. The sensors had detected an unknown vessel approaching, fast and silent, cloaked against detection. Kayla stiffened, instinct immediately kicking in. They found me, she said. They are here to finish what began on my world. Alex swallowed hard. His training had prepared him for emergencies, but nothing in his experience matched this. What do we do? He asked, trying to steady his voice. Kayla's expression hardened. We survive. And then we fight. Together they hurried through the ship, preparing defenses. Alex coordinated with the crew, integrating Kayla's advanced technology into the ship's systems. Shields hummed to life, weapons charged, and every crew member braced for the unknown. Kayla moved with precision, her alien reflexes anticipating threats before they emerged. Watching her, Alex felt both awe and reassurance. The first encounter was sudden and violent. Small drones, sleek and deadly, darted from the shadow of the approaching vessel. Kayla intercepted them effortlessly, her movements almost a blur. Alex coordinated the ship's defenses, guiding crew fire and targeting drones with pinpoint accuracy. Together, human and alien worked in perfect synchronization. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, the immediate threat passed. The drones were destroyed, but the larger vessel remained, ominous and unyielding on the ship's sensors. Kayla looked at Alex, eyes narrowing. "This is only the beginning," she said. Alex nodded, his resolve solidifying. He had stepped into a universe far larger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Yet standing beside Kayla, he felt capable, prepared, and most importantly, alive. The night ended not with fear, but with cautious hope. Kayla rested, her armor neatly secured, while Alex watched over her. Despite the danger and uncertainty, a quiet bond had formed between them. A connection built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. Somewhere in the dark expanse of space, enemies lurked, but Alex knew one thing for certain. Together, they were stronger than any force that might try to tear them apart. And when the morning came, they would face the next challenge, ready, united, and unafraid.